In school, they used to tell you if you had writer's block, well, write what you know. Take your ideas from that. And for me, my podcast has been a lot of what I know. I've had a lot of bands on the show. I've also had a lot of guests from the media. You know, being in Chicago media since the early 90s, I've met a lot of people, made a lot of friends, and it was only natural that I invited a lot of those people into the car to share food with me. So today, it is the best of media guests, Volume 1. There will be more. I've had a lot more guests. And it's brought to you by Boost Mobile. It's lovingly rendered by our friends at Boost Mobile, boostmobile.com.
It's Car Con Carne. Let's eat in the car. It's Car Con Carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
So like I said, it's the best of media guests, Part 1, Volume 1. There are a lot to get to. I just wanted to blast through a few this week. Fun guests, a nice variety, a cross-section of people who've been in the car. And I wanted to start tonight with my first and really only remote broadcast guest. I was in San Francisco on business at the end of 2016, and I knew that Matt Pinfield lived out there. Now, Matt, you probably know or remember as the host of MTV's 120 Minutes for years. He was, for a lot of people, the source of new music. He was credible. He was clearly into the music. He was friends with all the bands. And he has this unmistakable, gravelly, deep voice. So when I went to San Francisco, I made a plan to get together with Matt over cheeseburgers, which we ate in front of his house in San Francisco. And we started by talking about just Matt's role on MTV.
I was a messenger. You know what I mean? Like, I feel I've always been the messenger. And one of the things I've said is I'm a music enthusiast, not a music elitist.
Right, and that is a clear difference. Because you know those people who are snobby and pissy about how much they know and what they know.
Yeah.
Not you.
Who cares? I mean, you know what that, and like, I just look at that and $5 will get you a venti coffee at Starbucks.
Exactly. Actually, it won't. But
it won't.
Probably not. I go for the iced quad venti, which is like a $6 drink.
It's
right? Stupid, dude. That leads me to something that bugs me. And I'm thinking you'll agree with me. This idea of guilty pleasures. You're talking about music elitism. I used to think maybe in the 90s when I thought it was too cool for school, working at Q101 or whatever, I believed that things were guilty pleasures. Now that I've gotten older and smarter, it's just stuff you love. And
it is. And you know, it's funny. There's the thing in the book, which I love because I'm in a band, as a teen in the 70s, young teen, playing the teen dances for, junior high school.
Sweet.
In Jersey, right? And we're doing Bowie, Aerosmith, Kiss, even Roxy Music and Van Morrison, believe it or not. And then I could just BTO, whatever it was. And it's really funny because when you're a kid, you're so much more self-conscious. So I remember buying the ABBA single SOS,
which is their best song.
Yeah, it is.
That builds a great momentum.
It does.
Uh-huh.
Beautiful. The production.
The Mad Caddies version of that is awesome.
It is. Mad Caddies killed it, right? It's a great song. But when I was a kid, I'd put the window down. I don't want nobody in the neighborhood to know I was listening to ABBA.
As we continue down this list of Best of Media Guests, Part 1, let's move on to Johnny Mars. If I haven't mentioned it yet, I'm James Van Alstyne, and for a brief moment in time, I worked at WXRT. And the job I took, I had two different jobs there. I was the music director, but more prominently or more well-known, I replaced Johnny Mars on XRT. It was an interesting time.
How long did you last there? What were you there?
Johnny.
I don't mean it that way,
It was 9 months. I'll never forget, they cut you loose. Then they had a staff meeting, and I was invited not to attend. Norm said, well, we are like family, and we just need to kind of come together, understand what's going on. Here it is. They cut you loose. I'm coming in. Rather than, say, okay, here's what's going on. We're all together now. Here's the new plan. I was on the outside the entire time.
I didn't know that part of it.
Oh, the entire time I was there, I felt like I was crashing a party. And it's funny, I got the job at XRT. I'm thinking, wow, this is great. People at XRT are there for decades. I'll grow old at this place. Didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
And oh my God, replacing Johnny Mars in time slot only. I can't even tell you how vilified I was. It was the most demoralizing, debilitating.
I'm so sorry. I didn't know that aspect of it at all.
Oh, you did a little bit.
I knew that you were put in an awkward position. I didn't know that
It was
the
the
audience
worst.
would come in and knife you.
It was brutal. Well, I was the guy who was playing Cypress Hill 2 months prior, and
Yeah. Well, that's it. It ended up that we both ended up in a different place, and then you actually encouraged me to apply for the Zone job after you left XRT and went to 94.7 with Bill Gamble and all the old a lot of the old crew from Q101. And for that I'm definitely grateful that you asked me to join there, because it actually what it did was it was a union shop. I never worked at a union shop before, so I was able to get health insurance after a year of employment, and I was there part-time for 3 years, and I knew kind of it wasn't going to end up being anything.
we were all clear on that.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget, after I left XRT, I did something kind of goofy on my way out, and I'm never one to burn bridges. I guess I kind of burned one here. The program director at the time at XRT had an aversion to white cheese, or just cheese in general, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Except on pizza. I think he likes cheese on pizza.
Irony noted.
Boy, I hope he doesn't hear this. I don't care.
Well, this is public information.
Yeah,
I mean,
is
really.
right. Yeah.
So he kept a lot of his stuff in my office because his office was a little cluttered. And in my office was like a dorm fridge where he'd keep all of his soda. I left a block of cheese on top of his soda before I left. It was kind of a goofy little prank. It took on a life of its own. It was the most ridiculous thing. In hindsight, the me of today wouldn't have done that. The me back then was kind of frustrated.
Hey, I remember your life a little bit back then. I heard stories that you would be getting into the office at 8 in the morning as the music director, and then he wouldn't show up till noon or 1, and then have to deal with all the calls that were waiting for him. And you were sitting there waiting for a music meeting to happen. It didn't happen till like 3 or 4, and I think you had one new baby at the time, or were
Correct.
waiting.
Oh no, I was at that point. I had a baby months away. It was imminent.
Right. And you were going home to have dinner with your wife and then having to come back and be on the air.
It was
so
great.
you were there from 8 in the morning till it sounded like my El Paso job.
It was
a little bit,
It wasn't nearly as grueling, but I did this thing, and then suddenly Chicago Magazine does this.
Oh yeah,
like anniversary retrospective on XRT. It's like at that point it was the 30th anniversary maybe of XRT, 25th. I don't know what it was. And the lead of the story is the cheese thing.
I know. It did take
all
on
this
a life
history.
of its own.
All this history, all these legendary jocks, you and Terry and Lynn and Frank and Bobby, all that stuff got pushed down because of this goofy story from this guy who, statistically speaking, never even worked there. In the history of XRT, I was there for 9 months.
Yeah.
It's like I was never even there.
A blip, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite guests, to say nothing of favorite media guests, is Abe Cannon. I've known Abe for years. He hosts his own podcast, The Superior, Abe Cannon on Hold. And he's been on a few times. And one of my favorite memories with Abe was when he came on the show with Bass, who's also part of Abe Cannon on Hold, and Tim Virgin, another repeat guest. All friends of mine, all people who I love, and all people who make me laugh. And we went to Riccobenni's on the south side for breaded steak sandwiches, which are amazing. And this was end of last year, December of 2017. And we talked about the way that people react online to celebrity deaths. Charles Manson. That one really hurts.
2017's really taking out our favorites.
Is that what you said, Bass?
No,
On social media,
did he really say that? You know what? I meant to text you that too. Damn it.
Bass and I have noticed on social media, people get so maudlin about people they've never met.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever a celebrity dies, the dude from Steely Dan, that one really hurts.
Yeah.
Fuck you, 2017.
Well, the funniest thing is, I remember I've said that before. I'm like, God, all these people are mourning all these people's deaths. I mean, like Chris Cornell. Then I went to Virgin. I'm like, why do people care about Chris Cornell? And Virgin goes, yeah, I was friends with that guy. I used to hang out with him. You're the only one that can say this hurts.
Yeah, but it's not hang out either.
You're the only one.
You were always around him when you. James knows this. I mean, you guys all know this. Being on cow show and stuff, Abe, like, you meet these people, then sometimes you go out to dinner with them, and you have, like, a day or two with them, and then, they'll hit you up every now and then when, like, the record comes out, so...
No.
It's not like I was hanging out.
No, that doesn't happen to any of us.
Yeah,
Sorry. That's never happened to me.
Not once.
The only person who's said to me is the wrestler X-Pac.
This is my 17th
And that's
year
not
in
even
radio.
true. That's a lie, too.
And the only person I ever got like hit up by was like the roadie for Fall Out Boy.
No, you got hit up by Exhibit. You got hit up by Exhibit.
Exhibit likes you, bro.
And
That's
Sendog.
true.
Sendog from Cypress Grove.
Sendog. I was even worked with Sendog at the
Sendog,
record company.
anytime Sendog
He
comes
won't
out,
even know my name at this
He
point,
always-
but he knows you, though.
he always texts Bass. Yo, Bass,
He knows, but yo, Bass, what's up?
Shitty bar for an after set.
Yeah, man, you want to roll up one for, come one for the,
Come on through,
Fair
Bass.
enough, fair
Come on, Chief.
enough.
No, but the fake outrage when someone dies. Like I never post anything when someone dies. And like if my family member died, how come these people don't give a shit when their uncle dies? But when like who just died? Did Skippy
David Cassidy.
David Cassidy.
Charles Manson.
I remember watching TV and seeing David. It was just like one of my little brothers. Damn you, 2017.
You're with the Angels now.
It's because of
Rest in
you I
glory.
decided to get up and become an accountant.
Rest in glory,
Now,
my
I don't
brother.
want to say anything right now because now I'm going to go back and look at my Facebook page just in case I wrote anything.
Dimebag Darrell, rest in glory, my brother.
Yeah,
Although-
brother, it's been 13 since we've seen you.
Oh, that's the worst. That's the worst.
Yeah.
Bro, it's been 19 years since I lost Dime. Shut the fuck up. You didn't lose Dime. He doesn't give a shit about you. Rest in glory, my brother. I know he's up there right now. No, if this whole heaven and hell system works, Dimebag probably didn't make it upstairs.
Yeah, he probably
I'm
did
just
not.
guessing. He might have. Who knows?
At best, he's hanging around in that purgatory
Yeah,
floor.
exactly. At best, he's in
Waiting
purgatory.
for his number.
He's at purgatory with like Kurt Cobain and John Ritter or some shit.
Trading off heroin needles.
He's not upstairs. He's hanging out with Lane Staley right now.
How did John Ritter end up with Kurt Cobain?
He was
All that was wholesome and pure.
Don't ask.
He
And by
lived-
the way,
he lived with
John,
two girls.
you were special to me in my heart. That Three's Company episode where
Some
you
creep is
and
walking up on us. This guy
I know
with
that
a gun?
guy's walking up.
He's in all army fatigue.
Yeah, he's got fatigue.
Oh, your
South side of
window-
Chicago,
shit.
home of
I
bread and
just
steaks.
I just realized Tim's
Hold on.
windows.
I gotta roll the window up.
Home
That
of bread and
dude.
steaks and carjackings.
When you're wearing all forest camo in the
Maybe we
city.
should move the car.
Best of Media Part 1, Car Con Carne. I had a lot of media guests and friends come to my car to eat food and chat. And back in mid-2016, Amy Guth joined me. Now, Amy is a well-known force of nature in Chicago media. For years, she was the general manager of the Red Eye newspaper. You've probably heard her on WGN radio through the years, countless television and radio appearances. She most recently was elevated to the head of the Midwest Independent Film Festival. And back in June of 2016, we talked about her documentary work with her taking on online harassment. And we'll get to some of that conversation. But first, puns. Amy Guth is sitting shotgun, a return guest on Car Con Carne. And Amy, you have so much going on. I figured we would talk about it over scones.
Yeah,
and
as
coffee.
one does.
As one does. We're at a place called Scone City, which is an entire city fashioned from scones.
And it is a source of endless puns around the word scone.
When we decided to go here, there was a pun exchange.
Scone loke was my favorite.
Thank you. Although, full credit to you for Scone Thugs in Harmony.
Yeah, that was a good one. And at some point I'm going to rework the entire lyrics to Alone by Heart to be about scones.
Scone Ranger.
Right.
Scone Crawford. I bet law enforcement doesn't know what to do with this.
They don't, and that's the issue. If you get up to a high level cybersecurity person, that's fine. But if you're terrified, you print out your tweets and you walk into a police station, nothing is going to happen, most likely.
They'll say, we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah,
if anything else happens, make sure you let us know.
And sometimes that next thing that could happen could be you getting beheaded or raped or whatever, and that's terrifying. And so there's a law enforcement piece, but I think the narratives around it are really the big piece, because if the message that we keep sending is this is the normal thing, and if you can't handle it, don't be on Twitter. Don't participate. And that's where I call foul, because everybody has a right to participate with the expectation of relative safety.
A little bit of Carkoon Carney history. The show started years ago with a friend of mine, 4 years ago, with a friend of mine named Mike Braden. And the idea was we wanted to do a barbecue podcast. We thought we would just go to different barbecue restaurants every week, record the show, and just kind of BS. Of course, there aren't that many barbecue restaurants, but also we learned that if you record inside a restaurant, there's so much ambient noise, it sucks. So we had the idea to record the show in my car. Well, long story short, Mike moved to New York. He's a voiceover artist. He was closer to agency work. And that left me figuring out what to do next with the show. And I decided I wanted to keep doing it. I loved the idea of Car Con Carne. And with Mike gone, I transitioned to this concept of just having a different guest every week at a different restaurant. And my very first guest, as I kind of relaunched and rebranded Car Con Carne, this was in November of 2015, was radio compadre, is that the right word? A radio colleague, friend, Alex Quigley. And we talked about album sales.
It's so funny. I watch album sales, and I watch what goes on in music on a regular basis. You mentioned Versus. I remember when that came out, debuted, sold like 1 million copies right out of the gate. Can you imagine, in your wildest dreams, an artist being able to release an album first week, selling anything more than 25,000 copies?
You mean like a new artist?
Yeah, or any artist. It can't be done.
It would take... I bet you if Taylor Swift really tried to make it happen, she could make it happen. It would
not to 1 million. It's changed that much.
It would be something like where she doesn't even like give anyone anything, and you have to buy the whole thing up front. It would take someone who's worked their entire career to reach the apex of the music industry, and a giant stunt.
Yes,
to even get close. You're right.
And here's the thing: to be certified as a gold-selling record, you need to sell 500,000 copies of an album. Mm-hmm. It's at the point now where for an artist to hit gold, it's almost like being a Scientologist and going clear. It's one of those things you've heard about happening. You think it might be attainable, but it just doesn't happen.
Congratulations, Katy Perry. You've reached OT level 6.
One of Chicago media's biggest rock stars, I mean, true rock stars. He walks in a room, everyone knows who he is Mancow. I've been to lunch with this guy, and it's stunning. Sitting at the table with him, just people rubberneck and crane, because Mancow is who he is. He is a larger-than-life personality. And we went for hot dogs. It was May of 2016. And we talked for so long, I had to break the episode up into 2 parts. But we talked about what Mancow would do if he ever left radio. And currently, as I record this, he is off the air. But I expect, as with any time this happens, it's a short-lived situation for Mancow. But we talked about what he would do if radio ever went away completely.
Would you ever podcast, or you think that's...
No.
Would you
Complete waste of time.
Oh, come on.
Nobody's making any money, and those people that say they're making money doing podcasts are liars. It's not enough money in it for me.
Well, I think a small handful are making money.
I don't think so. But few.
I mean, I think it's Corolla.
You think it's what?
I think Corolla. I think Hardwick.
Well.
But again, a small few.
No, I like Hardwick.
I do too.
I wouldn't pay for it.
No, well, I think it's all sponsorship. I can't imagine a subscription model for listeners.
Well, I guess Irving's is not going to sponsor you now that I said their hot dogs are mediocre. Sorry,
but
pal.
hey, good news. Gene and Jude and Superdog might.
Oh, good.
See?
Good.
Glass half full.
Good. So, are you going to move to the Loop? Are you going to go back to radio?
I'm enjoying filling in.
You put work into your show. You have little tidbits of information about the artists and the songs, and people like that stuff. The enigma, the question. This is what excites the listener. They want to know these things. They don't like feeling like they don't know something, and you bring them in and give them a little bit of information. So don't you resent guys that wing it?
I do.
Yeah, that's I have a work ethic. Whatever.
You know, when I started in radio, I wanted to be in radio because I love music. I wanted to be able to talk about music and play it. And what I found so shocking when I started working at Q101 was a lot of the disc jockeys there really just wanted to hear themselves talk. I mean, it didn't matter if they were playing Britney Spears or Nine Inch Nails.
Not like I've talked a lot here.
But you do personality radio. I mean, I think what you do kind of transcends that very narrow...
See, this is a beautiful woman, this thing called radio. I love her. I consider that studio a temple. I don't curse in the studio. I treat it with respect. This is my temple. And you talked about me with the listeners. God is first with me, and the other person is second. That's the listener, and I'm third. And it is sacred, and there is a trust. And I fail, but I do try to entertain. I don't try to take their time for granted. Every second is precious in people's lives. It's important what we do. to make somebody laugh, to make them think, to make them feel on the way to work in a society that doesn't feel.
So my day job, as I record this, I do digital content for 3 different Chicago radio stations, WLS-FM, WLS-AM, and 101 WKQX. I also do the local music show, Demo 312, on 101 WKQX. There is a shocking amount of talent in the building, and specifically at WKQX. And back in it was May of 2016, I had Lauren O'Neill, who does middays at WKQX, jump in the car for a test run of a television pilot that never happened, but it was fun working on it. And we talked about Lauren's favorite concert memory.
The most impactful concert that I've ever been a part of was our first Night We Stole Christmas here, because it was Q87.7. We were facing so many challenges just being on that frequency because people's cars' radios didn't go down that low.
Right.
We couldn't tell if anyone heard us,
The way
knew we existed.
The way I described it back then, have you ever seen the movie Being John Malkovich, where the elevator stops on like the 13.5 floor? That's the way I felt 87.7 was on the dial. Like, some people can figure out how to get there, but not everybody.
Yeah, and we kind of used that. We did guerrilla marketing. I mean, it was...
I remember seeing that the station did that and booked that show. I thought, wow. Like, I was looking at it from the outside. I can't believe they actually pulled that off.
Yeah. And it was a sold-out show at the Aragon, which was probably my first time at the venue. And there's nothing like that in Florida. There's nothing like a lot of Chicago down south, I should say. But
you ever seen a real gator?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I've eaten real gator.
Have you really?
Yeah.
What does it taste
But
like?
you haven't? It's like chicken.
Growing up in Chicago, as far as media superstars go, Bob Sirott, to me, has always been on that short list. And his work with his wife, Marianne Murciano, very well known. They've been on television together. They've been on radio together. And in 2016, March of 2016, they did My Car together.
Marianne Murciano, Bob Sirott. So we went to 90 miles for a lunch today. Thanks for jumping in the Mazda for this one.
This is unbelievable. All the best restaurants, I think, are in strip malls.
Well, as malls go in this area, this is maybe number 3 on the list. Maybe you'd put Old Orchard number 1, throw Northbrook Court behind that. Maybe this is number 3, just ahead of the Lincoln Village strip mall that has a Panera and a GameStop.
Yeah, I have to say I haven't been to this one a lot, although now that the Cuban restaurant is here, maybe we'll be here more, Marianne.
I really like the decor in that restaurant, too. 90
They have
miles.
one on Armitage.
You know why it's called 90 miles, don't you?
Is it because it's 90 miles from Cuba to
Key West.
So you can see Cuba on a good day?
On a good day, I have actually, well, I don't know. It looked like land. It might have been land.
Thank you, Sarah Palin.
So, Marianne, your heritage is Cuban, yes?
I was actually born in Cuba. I am Cuban.
So how did your family get out of Cuba?
Oh, wow. Well, that was a long time ago. So Castro was already in power. And my family, most of my dad's brothers were in aviation. My dad was a pilot, his brother was a pilot, his dad was a pilot, other 2 brothers just in the aviation industry, except for one who had moved to Florida in the 40s. And so what happened is that all the businesses were taken over. They were nationalized, by the government. And so it is called Cubana de Aviación. That's the company that he worked for. It was the only airline in Cuba. And in order to, first of all, you couldn't leave the country. They closed the borders and you could not leave.
Hence my question.
And so what they did is they planned a huge escape. And the way that the escape had to work was that everyone in the family had to leave at the same time. Because if you didn't leave at the same time, whoever was left behind was either jailed or persecuted in some way, or they would lose their jobs.
This is an awesome movie, but it's your life.
Yeah. So they had to coordinate the right time in order to plan their escape. And it took about a year to plan this because some of the women in the family, including my mom, were pregnant. And they didn't want to leave until they had their kids because they didn't know what they would find for real in terms of hospital care and all that. And they didn't.
I bet
wanna,
they were frightened. I mean, that sounds terrifying.
It's scary. Imagine you're pregnant and you're gonna have a baby soon. Maybe your third. In two cases, my mom's case and her sister-in-law, their third child, and they just thought, no, the child should be born in Cuba. Then we will take off. So when all the women were done having babies, the last ones were on December 4th and December 5th. And within the next month, all the brothers left with their families. And what they did basically was they said, they were trusted by the government, by the way. They were pilots. And they said that their mother was in Florida on her deathbed and that everybody in the family needed to go for a weekend at least, for a few days, to say goodbye to her. So little by little, on different flights, within a span of a couple of weeks, everybody left.
And that's it. The best of media, Volume 1 on Carkoon Carney. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this show, please feel free to share it. Tell a friend. We are on iTunes, Google Play Music, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere you find podcasts. I think I'm still on iHeart, right? iHeart and TuneIn, yeah. I'm there, carkooncarne.com. Thank you again for listening, and thank you again to all my media friends for playing along. Oh, and it's all brought to you by Boost, and the podcast is all brought to you by Boost Mobile, naturally.